Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Pad Academy event that is coming to North America tomorrow or this coming Monday. So, the Pad Academy event is something that's referred to as kind of like the Summer Pad Academy. Maybe it's to celebrate the start of summer school or school finishing out for the traditional school year, but regardless of what it's for, it's basically dressing up many of our favorite Pad characters in festively schoolgirl, schoolboy outfits, which may or may not tickle your fancy. But with that being said, most of the cards in this collab are simple reskins of existing cards in the rare machine, with obviously some twists, different colors, and whatnot. But the problem is, a lot of the cards are simply outdated. And because this is like I forgot what number we're on, but like this event has come many times in the past, a lot of the cards are just very old and they just can't keep abreast with what is currently available at this point in time. And even though Gung Ho has introduced a couple new cards, as well as Super Awakenings and Limit Breaking for the higher rarity cards, they are for the most part lackluster. Now, this video will be highlighting the pros and cons of each of the available cards, as well as providing some insight as to where you can actually utilize them. With that being said, all of the 8-star or the top rarity cards in this event can be exchanged for through the monster exchange system. However, that is a terrible idea to do because they are just middling at best. You are much better off saving your own 6-star Godfest exclusives for a much more desirable event and or card. So, in the Pad Academy Rare Machine, we have 3 8-stars, and then 4, 7, 6, and 5-star cards. Unfortunately, the distribution is not very friendly, with them being only kind of like a weird shaped Christmas tree. But with that in mind, some of them might have niche application usages, but in all honesty, I don't feel that it's necessarily worthwhile chasing or pursuing many of these cards because they're not necessarily doing anything that spectacularly amazing. Now, one card that you might notice that is absent from this list is Sakuya, and that's because Sakuya can be purchased for 300,000 monster points from the Monster Point shop, but again, that's a terrible idea because she's lackluster overall. But the bigger reason is because for the June monthly quest series, if you're able to complete all 30 dungeons, you actually get Sakuya as a reward. So we're going to all be gaining one eventually at some point in time, so there's no point in trying to purchase her. Now, a gentle refresher in terms of Limit Break and Super Awakenings. Super Awakenings are a way to add an additional level of power to your existing cards because it grants them a new awakening that tends to be on the stronger side. However, in order to do so, they have to be limit broken, which means they have to be able to reach beyond level 99. And again, these Super Awakenings only actually function in solo mode. So if you are planning to Super Awaken any card, you need to make sure they can be successfully limit broken. And you can see if a card can be limit broken by the color of their level text. So if they are in yellow, they cannot be limit broken. If they are blue, it means they can be limit broken. But again, not all limit breakable cards have Super Awakening, so make sure you actually see the little question mark in the top corner. But again, don't Super Awakening a card unless you actually plan to use those cards in solo mode. So all the 8-star base cards are able to be traded for through the Monster Exchange system, but again, they're all quite lackluster, so I am redundant when I say no there, but it's just to kind of ingrain it into your mind that these are not the best cards and worthy of exchanging. So, Uruka is a brand new 8-star card to come out, and you're thinking, oh wow, Uruka, this is amazing. I can get my hands on a Fujin style active skill and I can totally start clearing more content. Well, you're in for a world of pain and surprise because she unfortunately is not a damage absorb void. She is a color absorb void. Oh, that's disappointing because if you do not have a single Fujin style active skill, gaining one will be tremendously valuable because it will help trivialize many content as well as making your life significantly easier. A color absorb void card, on the other hand, does not do that much. Like, maybe you can dance your way through Machine Harem more easily or Machine Goemon, but these are very rare niche situations. Maybe Noah Dragon if you have a pixel alongside of it, but like you get the point. Like, there are not many cases where we actually want to use color absorb void. So right from the get-go, Uruka in Pad Academy is kind of sad and lackluster and nowhere near as spectacular as the heroine form. In terms of her leader skill, she actually has a higher damage multiplier than Diablos, as well as the same damage reduction component. But with that being said, in order to activate her damage component as well as the damage reduction, you have to hit Fire, Water, Wood, Dark, and Heal Orbs. Now, on a 7x6 board, this is definitely achievable, but if you're planning on using a more monocolor-oriented team, as well as board changers, orb changers, you may not be able to actually activate activates. So Uruka is, I'd say, arguably possibly the second best 7x6 leader because she actually has a very respectable multiplier. But the problem is it may not activate it, and that is a downside. So another big issue is with 7x6 leaders, you don't actually need to own one yourself. You can just pair with a friend. So if you have an Anubis or any other combo-based leader, just simply pair with a friend's Diablos. You don't actually need to own Diablos to take advantage of him. And the same can be said for Uruka. But then with that being said, why run Uruka when you can just piggyback off a Diablos friend? Maybe the scenario would be like, well, I want to have a 7x6 when I co-op myself. So maybe that can be a scenario where you want to use them. But again, it's definitely not worth exchanging for because, well, she's not that great, unfortunately. Like, she does still have the board changer style of like a Dark Kali board, and the color absorb void is just tacking on additional cooldown, unfortunately. They are bind immune. They do have the recover bind awakening, so you have some ability to at least kind of act as a bind clearing option. She is very cute and adorable, which I think is important because, again, we are playing puzzles and waifus, but she cannot be limit broken because she is a new card, so the new cards can't be limit broken or super awoken. She does not void damage absorb, so again, we just want to really stress that point. Color absorb is pretty niche, and the leader skill does require 5 elements, so it is a nice card, but nowhere near as elite as, say, Diablos, or at least the other past event cards like Yusuke and Edward. Orochi is another 8-star card, and he has the exact same active skill as Reincarnated Orochi. So you just think, well, I got a sweet delay, but it's an 8-star collab card. Again, like, for the most part, Orochi was used as an inherit, and then this Orochi here will probably be used as an inherit for the most part. Maybe you think, well, I get lots of TPAs and 2 skill boosts, not too shabby. But then again, if you're really needing to run a sub for a delay, you usually opt for Dark Athena, because Dark Athena has 3 skill boosts, and she also has 3 TPAs. She'll get a new evolution where she gains another one, I believe, or a super awakening, I don't recall, but she has a new awakening evolution in the future, but Dark Athena also has a 11 turn cooldown instead of 15. So you're basically paying 4 more turns of cooldown for 1 more turn of delay with Orochi. You have to think, is this worth it? But then again, if you're playing through a short dungeon where you need the active skill right away, you're more than likely going to want to use that Dark Athena. And many older players have Dark Athena because they all purchased her during her heyday, because I did as well, because it was great at the time. Obviously it's declined since then, but the point of the matter is it's hard to use Orochi effectively, so you may want to be using him as an inherit. But again, this is a very rare collab card to use as an inherit when you have something that you can gain from the rare machine at a 5-star Pantheon card. So it's not really a fair thing. Like, this is supposed to be a rare and exclusive card. He's got a cool hat on one of the heads, but it's not justifiable enough for his level of rarity. And again, TPA is quite a lackluster awakening because, well, we don't really play with TPA teams at this point in time. 7 combos are just so much more efficient overall. Now we come to Academy of Kali. She is basically Dark Kali but green with Wood Rose, so she's automatically worse, and she has no 7 combos. Ooh, this is looking bad. No TPAs even, so again, no extra damage augmentation. Her leader skill is far too orb hungry. She may have nice super awakenings, but again, you have no offensive awakenings whatsoever and 2 wasted Wood Rose, so it's going to be hard to justify using Academy Kali as a sub, even if you get nice super awakenings for the most part. But again, we can find guard break other places, we can find cloud resist in other cards. It's just not really justifiable to run Academy of Kali, and it's kind of sad because, well, she's supposed to be, again, a rare and exciting card. Unfortunately not. So now we come to the 7-star bases. So these cards still have super awakenings as well as the ability to be limit broken, assuming they're not a new card. So Academy Lucifer can become bind immune or gain another TPA or gain the Heart Shield Super Awakening. We don't really care because all we really focus on is his active skill. So Academy Lucifer's active skill does 200 times attack damage to a single enemy, and it changes your health to 1. So you're thinking, well, that's actually a pretty big button, because if you inherit it on someone with the co-op boost Awakening, they're actually able to deal meaningful and large amounts of damage. So that is great, and being able to reset your health to 1 can be good, and it can be bad at the same time. It's good if you're needing to reset your health in order to trigger other button-style actives like Grimjaw, because they want you to be at 1 health. And Grimjaw actually does more damage, 250% instead of 200. So again, using Lucifer first to get your health into the zone, and then Grimjawing is a much more efficient way to deal maximum amounts of button damage. But with that being said, if your health's at 1, you can't tank preemptive. So again, it can be a pro, it can be a con, it just depends on the way you look at it. But for the most part, you don't necessarily need multiple Lucifers because in theory, if you have every card in the game, you don't want to run more than one Lucifer active skill. You rather run Grimjaws because they do more damage. So he's cool to have to reset your health. It can be useful, it can be niche. But for the most part, most players are not going to find much merit or value out of him because, well, how many people are playing to button through things for the most part because you need a lot of these button inherits overall. So he is basically like the Rare Machine Lucifer, except he's light-based, so you can inherit him onto a light-based card with co-op boost, get some stat transfer, get bigger fat damage. Academy Isis can have two distinct evolutions in the sense that she changes her wardrobe. She gains, I think, like a Starbucks, a laptop, and maybe something else in the background. Her leader skill changes, but we don't even care about that because that leader skill was outdated back then. It's very much outdated at this point in time. So, well, what can we use Isis for? Well, Rare Machine Isis is rarely used, and she shares the same, very similar active skill in the sense that it has healing and bind recovery. It might be the same active skill. I kind of forget with Ice Size. But regardless, the problem is she doesn't do very much. Like, we can't really run Isis anywhere at this point in time. Why would we want to run Academy Isis when she has lesser stats? So, yes, you can get cool Super Awakenings, but it's not going to make a difference when, well, you don't actually want to run her as a sub. Maybe some situations you might like that for the bind immunity and for the 3-turn base cooldown, but again, these are quite niche and situational overall. Academy Athena is, again, slightly different than, I guess, the regular farmable Athena, thank goodness. Like, she does enhance wood and light orbs, and then, well, 4-turn cooldown. Maybe it's the same as regular Athena. I don't know. It sounds familiar. Not the greatest active, but the fact that it's a 4-turn cooldown is nice. But the main problem is she doesn't have skill boost. She has 1 skill boost, 3 TPAs, but we've already mentioned that TPAs are not that helpful overall. So you only have 1 skill boost. So yes, she has a short base cooldown, but the fact that she's not helping charge up anyone else by putting her on your team makes it harder to actually run her as a sub. If she came with 2, at least maybe 3 would be great, of course, then maybe you can justify using her as a sub slot, but again, you can't because less skill boost. And furthermore, she has TPAs, which you've already established are lackluster. She also has 2 Woodrows, which are probably worse. So you basically have kind of 5 middling to dead awakenings on a 9 awakening card, so that's definitely putting a large damper on her overall viability. And again, it might be challenging to actually utilize her on a team because, again, it's just not that helpful overall. Maybe Coyote teams could find some merit, but again, you won't have enough skill boost to charge up certain cards. Academy Hestia is a new card. It should be saying new. I'm not sure why that's the case at this point in time, but she is basically very similar to Beach Tachibana in the sense that she copies the active skill of the base form of the Rare Egg Machine card. And that is quite important because not only do you copy that base skill, which is generally a bit stronger, you also get to actually have the stats and awakenings that are kind of from the evolved form. So just this is interesting, like, because Hestia is, I guess, a niche card. Like, it still is that color absorb void, which I've already said that is not that amazing, but having 1 in your monster box is definitely useful, I'd say. Like, I have 1 between my 2 accounts. I think I've used it once so far, but hey, I used it once and I feel good about myself. So it is something possible you can find value from, but at least you can run her as a sub, and that's a big deal because, like, Urika is obviously much harder to roll, so rolling Academy Hestia might be your best way to actually gain a color absorb void card that you can run as a sub because they tend to have longer base cooldowns. So because they have longer base cooldowns, it's a little harder to inherit, so being able to run them as a sub is meaningful. Now, in terms of her awakening, she does have follow-up attack, which does obviously solve some problems, bind immune, and she also has 3 enhanced hard orb awakenings. So enhanced hard orb awakenings dramatically improve your recovery and healing potential when you match 4 connected hard orbs. So that can be meaningful in certain teams, but you have to also remember Hestia has no offensive awakenings, which can be a little saddening depending on the type of team you run. You may not have enough damage overall, so you might still need to inherit her. But at least if you inherit her, she at least has better stats compared to the Rare Machine form, as well as obviously providing a healthy board changer of wood, light, fire, and heart orbs. So some teams can find value from that. So even if you don't encounter a color absorb void spawn, you at least have a 4 elemental board changer with heart orbs. Not too bad overall. Again, having 1 color absorb void in your box is nice, but again, don't trade for Urika. Now we come to 6-star base cards, and none of the 6-star base cards gain Super Awakenings or limit breaking potential, so they're basically stuck in their old, like, their forms that they had a year or year plus ago, and for the most part, they're all quite sad, which is unfortunate. So, Academy Hathor has the exact same active skill as Rare Machine Hathor, and has the same sad Awakenings, only 6 Awakenings. Double 7 combo at the time when Hathor was released was a big deal, but now we have so many better options that we don't actually need to run Academy Hathor for this double 7 combo. Their active skill is a 25% gravity with a 200% orb movement time buff. So the gravity has become less powerful and meaningful at this point in time because A, we have damage void boss spawns, so basically you can't actually gravity them down because that does too much damage, and B, we now have follow-up attack awakening, so you don't actually need to kind of chunk down resolve spawns. Before, it was actually quite common practice to run, say, like double Sukuya as leaders and, say, Hera is as a sub, and I believe all 3 gravities, if my math and memory is not mistaken, brings the boss down below 50%. So with 3 active skills, you could counteract a resolve spawn. At the time, that was probably the most efficient way to do so, but nowadays, form a column of heart orbs, save those 3 active skills, maybe use 1 to make hearts. So we have much better options at this point in time, so Academy Hathor has kind of fallen out of favor. The time extend buff aspect can be useful because we're actually seeing a lot more spawns with massive time debuffs, like say the Dark Izanami from this month's current challenge 10. Terrible time debuff. So being able to buff your own movement time overrides those time debuffs, and that can be meaningful because it can give yourself, well, the ability to actually match orbs in a timely manner. So it can be helpful, but the fact that Academy Hathor has a 13-turn cooldown is kind of saddening because you can't abuse it as often. Like, it's not as obviously as amazing as Tardis or Diao Chan, which buff their movement times on 1 and 2 turns respectively. So niche card overall, but if you have no time buffing card, maybe something valuable to have. Academy Aquila is basically the exact same as Reg Machine Aquila, but it's Aquila without the new evolution that Japan has. So we know how amazing Aquila is right now. She is not amazing. So Academy Aquila is just as wonderful. It's not good at all. So that is a big problem overall. Now, that's basically kind of all I have to say about Aquila. Like, it's not that great at this point in time. Like, when it was released, it had good potential and capabilities, but there are far easier leaders to use with much more consistency, more durable, and Skyfalls are usually a preferred thing as opposed to no Skyfall leaders. And this Academy Aquila does not gain the new evolution Japan has, which at least brings more viability overall. And now we come to Academy Susanoo, which is surprisingly a good card. It still is a good card. And this is because it's all around his active skill. He provides 50% damage reduction for 5 turns on a 15-turn cooldown. That is pretty amazing. Like, this is wonderful because you're basically able to survive for 5 turns and not have to worry too much about your health. So this is meaningful and significant when you're either forced to stall or dance through problematic floors or have to survive numerous large preemptives back to back. So the advantage of using a shield as opposed to a delay is that, well, not all spawns can be delayed. If they can't be delayed, well, you're out of luck. Whereas the shield is almost always going to be helpful because very few encounters actually dispel your buffs unless they get pushed into a dangerous health zone, which you should be avoiding anyway. So the shielding is consistent and it's very safe. And the fact that it lasts for 5 turns is amazing. You can just dance out through problematic spawns. And to a certain extent, it kind of gives you almost 5 turns of safety to charge up your other active skills, which is meaningful and great. So, for the most part, you would definitely inherit Susanoo around, but let's say you're very desperate. He has 3 skill boosts, and with 3 skill boosts, and also Bind Immunity, you can actually bring him as a possible sub in certain short dungeons where you need this shielding active skill very quickly. So, pretty powerful and well-rounded card overall. Like, if I were to roll a card that wasn't, say, like Uruka, I would want Susanoo because I feel like that's a wonderful card to have, even though I probably have a base form Susanoo from the Rare Machine anyways, but at least it's dark, so I have options for color stat transferring differences. And now we come to Academy Loki, who is another new card. Unfortunately, he's okay. He's actually not too bad overall. Like, his base active skill is wood and dark cards gain 2.5 times damage for 3 turns, as well as 2 turns of haste on a 14-turn cooldown. So comparing to regular Norse gods, you're paying a couple more turns for your active skill in order to have 2 turns of haste. So generally speaking, that might be worthwhile, but the problem is, at 14-turn cooldown, You have the same cooldown as a Gemstone Princess, and Gemstone Princesses are much better overall. So, unless I desperately needed that 2 turns of haste, I would pick a Gemstone over Loki because, well, it's the same cooldown. Now, at least Academy of Loki might have some sub-potential, like 2 skill boosts is at least helpful, but it's the machine and god killers that can be helpful. But the problem is, you have to be facing a machine and god type spawn at the same time. Otherwise, he's only having 3 times personal damage, which is not enough. You'd rather run a 7, like even a single 7 combo card is generally more helpful, because they have 2 times damage against all spawns, double 7 combo 4 times against all spawns. Like, you already see why you're falling behind if they're not a machine god typing. So niche situation where you want to run them as a sub, niche again, I'd say to a certain extent if you actually want to run them as an inherit, unless you badly need to recycle other active skills back in time. And now we come to Academy 3rd Gear, and I can't really find much use for this card at this point in time because all these orb enhances don't really help many viable and valuable teams at this point in time, and the fact that they have such low base stats. So yes, they have a 4-turn cooldown, which is easy to overwrite, but again, they have such low stats, and Awakenings are not necessarily helpful to your team, so it's just really hard to actually utilize Academy 3rd Gear in most scenarios, and that's kind of disappointing because they were actually quite powerful before when monocolored teams kind of reigned supreme and those orb enhances actually pumped out large amounts of damage for those types of teams. Academy Sasuke is a lot worse than the rare machine form unless you're desperate for a dragon killer. But again, when he came out initially, dragon killers were kind of a rare commodity, whereas nowadays they're quite commonplace. We have Tsubaki of double and Kiryu of 3, so we have much better options to run for dragon killing potential. So unless you're desperately needing that kind of interesting orb changer, it's really hard to fit in Sasuke, but at least they maybe have a bit more value overall, I'd say, in 3rd Gear, because at least there's 2 skill boosts, might have some niches and applications here and there. Academy Ishtar is another new card, and they're quite interesting. They have the ability to completely break an enemy's defense down to 0, so if they had 10 million defense, suddenly it's 0 for 1 turn, affects carry over in a sweep if there's no preemptive, as well as changing the whole board to water, wood, and light orbs on a 15-turn cooldown. This is not too bad. We don't care about their Awakenings or leader skill because they're going to be used as an inherit. Now, being able to combine 2 unique components can be helpful provided they're beneficial. So 100% defense break has some value because, well, certain teams cannot bring guard break reliably, or they don't necessarily bring or have a high enough damage multiplier, so it might be challenging to actually overcome those high defense spawns. So it still can have some value defense breaking, and the board changer can be helpful provided you can capitalize on those 3 colors. Now, the most prominent leader that I can come up with at this point in time is Yusuke, because Yusuke needs light and water combos, as well as 7 overall to achieve maximum multiplier. So by being able to break the defense of cards, it can be helpful because Yusuke teams almost never run guard break because it's quite challenging to run rainbow color coverage and have a guard breaking sub at the same time. So with that in mind, this defense break can be helpful. But you might say, oh wait, Yusuke does so much damage anyways. That is true. But certain spawns, most notably the Jewels of Creation in Arena 4, have 30 million defense. And 30 million defense is not that easy to overcome. And you may not necessarily want to blow your Yusuke active, and even then that may not guarantee 30 million plus damage based on orb distribution. Whereas using Academy Ishtar will guarantee you kill those Jewels of Creation. So again, it's quite niche and situational, but it does definitely have a place on Yusuke teams, as well as her Academy Ishtar being light-based to actually transfer some stats. So when you're playing through, say, Arena 4, you don't want to waste that Yusuke active. Use Academy Ishtar on some other active, some other sub, and then, well, decide if you want to have the board changer charge up or not later on. But with a 15-turn cooldown, you have some wiggle room. But again, 15-turn cooldown makes it very long because the base active skill, like just a vanilla board changer, Tri-Elemental No Hearts, is usually 8-turn cooldown. So you're thinking you're paying 7 or so turns for the defense break component. And last and kind of least is Academy Lumiel. So she has the exact same active skill as Rare Machine Lumiel. So how often do we actually use that? Not that often, unfortunately, and we don't care about the leader skill and the awakenings. So the team that I feel that Academy Lumiel can fit best on for an inherit is Blue Sonya teams. Because Blue Sonya is incredibly durable, so you can definitely stall up for inherits or longer cooldown or longer charging active skills, but being able to instantly do 100,000 damage to high defense spawns is meaningful because let's say you're playing through Arena 3, which is one of Blue Sonya's best dungeons because you don't need Fujins, and you encounter the pre-draws. A lot of players actually bring true damage because 10 million defense can be challenging to pierce through a Blue Sonya, and 20 million when you face the green pre-draws is nearly impossible. So having Academy Lumiel inherited on your team can be meaningful. Plus the fact that she is water-based means you can actually transfer some stats over. Yes, Famil can achieve the same thing, but not everyone has Famil, and I guess if you roll Academy Lumiel, you might have some value. But again, it's still quite niche where you could actually use them. Not the greatest active skill overall, but still it is something. It does have some uses at this point in time. So, in conclusion, the Pad Academy event is quite lackluster overall. You can kind of tell by how I basically said every card is a disappointing or sad or problematic in some way, shape, or form. So, with that being said, I would probably not spend your magic stones on here unless you're a collector and truly love those schoolboy and schoolgirl outfits to kind of give yourself those cute and adorable box cheerleaders. With that being said, you should definitely not utilize the monster exchange system because the top prize cards are middling or average at best. So let me know what you think about the Pad Academy event in the comments below. Do you actually plan on rolling? And if so, who do you actually hope to roll? I wish you all the best of luck in your own Pad adventures. Hopefully all the Mantastic day, and happy puzzling.